They lurk invisibly among us, their mundane facades meticulously crafted to conceal the bottomless void within. The neighbor who waves cheerfully each morning while retrieving his newspaper, the dedicated teacher who stays late helping struggling students, the respected church deacon who leads community outreach programs, these seemingly ordinary individuals could harbor unimaginable darkness beneath their carefully maintained exteriors. Serial killers don't announce themselves with glowing red eyes or sinister music. They smile, they charm, they blend. John Wayne Gacy performed as Pogo the Clown at children's hospitals, bringing joy to terminal patients just weeks before burying another young man beneath his floorboards. Ted Bundy, with his law school aspirations and political connections, used his polished charisma to lure victims with fabricated injuries and requests for assistance. Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer, clutched his Bible tightly every Sunday while fantasizing about the prostitutes he'd strangled the previous night, their bodies discarded like waste along desolate riverbanks. Dennis Rader, the BTK Killer, served as congregation president while meticulously planning his next project, carefully selecting families whose routines he'd studied for months. These monsters claimed at least 122 lives collectively, each victim representing shattered families, unfulfilled dreams, and untold suffering. Law enforcement experts estimate these notorious killers represent merely the visible portion of an unseen epidemic. For every Bundy or Gacy captured and identified, dozens more operate undetected, honing their methodologies through decades of experience. They move through our world wearing human masks, feeding on our trust and vulnerability. The following account details one such predator whose particular depravity ensured his legend would endure long after the desert had consumed the last traces of his countless victims. His name was John, and unlike those infamous killers whose captures provided some measure of justice, his reign of terror never ended with handcuffs or prison cells. He was never caught. He might still be out there. He might be anywhere. Jonathan Mercer accelerated his midnight blue Porsche 911 Carrera along the sun-bleached highway stretching between Las Vegas and Los Angeles, the powerful engine purring seductively beneath the hood like a beast anticipating release. The vehicle represented just one indulgence among many afforded by his substantial inheritance, an amount so vast he maintained his architectural consultation business primarily as elaborate camouflage rather than financial necessity. His weekend excursion to Vegas had proven exceptionally rewarding. The blackjack tables had yielded nearly $30,000 in winnings, while the private poker room introduced him to identical twin models celebrating their Fashion Week success. The memory of their intertwined bodies writhing across his penthouse suite's Egyptian cotton sheets brought a tightening sensation to his groin, though such manufactured pleasures paled compared to what potentially awaited on this desolate stretch of highway. John's true hunting grounds existed here, where desperate travelers sought rides and unwittingly entered the vehicle of their executioner. For years, he had refined his technique with military precision, never twice in the same location, never the same method, never leaving evidence that could connect one disappearance to another. His fingers tapped rhythmically against the leather-wrapped steering wheel as his predatory gaze scanned the shimmering horizon, heart accelerating when a distant figure materialized through the heat waves rising from the blistering asphalt. Squinting against the glare, he confirmed his suspicion, female, young, alone, and felt the familiar electric anticipation coursing through his veins like liquid fire. His pupils dilated as details emerged with decreasing distance, sun-kissed skin glistening with perspiration, chestnut hair falling in loose waves against bare shoulders, denim shorts revealing impossibly long legs. Approaching steadily, he observed her turning toward the sound of his engine, her exhausted expression transforming into hopeful relief as she extended her arm in the universal gesture of hitchhikers throughout history. John expertly modulated his speed, allowing himself to absorb every detail of her vulnerable form while positioning his vehicle optimally for what would follow. Passing her deliberately, he coasted to a gradual stop approximately 100 feet ahead, watching through his rearview mirror as she hurried toward what he undoubtedly perceived as salvation rather than damnation. The dashboard clock read 2:17 p.m., plenty of daylight remaining for what he had planned. The woman approached breathlessly, knuckles rapping against his window with unmistakable desperation, her features resolving into stunning clarity as the tinted glass descended electronically, early 20s, naturally beautiful without excessive makeup, full lips parted slightly to reveal perfect teeth. "Need a ride?" John called out, injecting precisely calibrated warmth into his baritone voice. "I could sure use one," she responded, relief evident in her melodic cadence. "Where are you headed?" "Los Angeles," she replied predictably, wiping perspiration from her forehead with delicate fingers. "Where else?" John gestured toward the passenger seat with practiced casualness, his expression conveying nothing but neighborly concern. "Go ahead and hop in. I'll get you wherever you need to go." She slid into the leather seat with a grateful sigh, the interior's cool air conditioning enveloping her overheated body like a lover's embrace. John observed clinically how she neglected fastening her seatbelt, her guard already lowered by his calculated presentation of normalcy and the desolate environment surrounding them. "You're so nice," she murmured, adjusting her position to face him. "That's really big of you. Thank you so much for helping me." John allowed himself a momentary glimpse at the moisture collecting in the hollow of her throat before returning his attention to the empty road stretching before them. "That's okay," he responded, subtle darkness infiltrating his tone unnoticed. "When I get through with you, you won't need any more help." Confusion flickered across her features like passing shadows. "What do you mean by that?" she asked, the first microscopic seed of apprehension germinating within her consciousness. John smoothly redirected, his practiced smile revealing nothing of the gruesome tableau already forming in his imagination. "Oh, you'll find out soon enough. Just sit back and enjoy the ride for now." Unable to resist establishing preliminary dominance, he added appreciatively, "My name is John. Man, you've got really great-looking legs." Her momentary tension dissolved under his carefully manufactured charm. "Why thank you, you're not too bad yourself. I'm Janelle, by the way." Her eyes traversed his athletic form with unmistakable interest, completely unaware that her casual appraisal was cataloging features she would later describe to detectives who would never connect him to any suspect. "As great-looking as your legs are," John continued, deliberately escalating the sexual tension, "I'll bet what's between them is even better." Janelle's laugh, throaty and uninhibited, echoed through the car's interior. "You nasty boy, that's just what I like. If you're a really good boy, I may just give you a taste later." The March desert sun beat relentlessly against the vehicle's exterior, but inside, the temperature rose from altogether different sources, her innocent anticipation of potential pleasure colliding catastrophically with his meticulous preparation for inflicting unimaginable pain. Hours dissolved into the shimmering horizon as John maintained superficial conversation, strategically revealing manufactured personal details while mentally calculating optimal locations along their route. Janelle's periodic glances betrayed growing comfort with her chauffeur, each smile, each casual touch against his arm when emphasizing points representing another nail in her unsuspecting coffin. "I'm getting hungry," she eventually announced, stroking her flat stomach absently. John's pulse quickened imperceptibly, the timing aligned perfectly with his preferred scenario. "I've got some sandwiches in the cooler in the back," he replied smoothly, having prepared this detail with particular attention. "We'll pull over at the first good place we find." "I'm getting hungry too." She nodded appreciatively, those captivating blue eyes he had already decided would join his growing collection, crinkling at the corners. "Great. Sounds good." John maintained vigilant observation of roadside markers invisible to casual travelers, indicators he had established during previous excursions. 27 minutes later, a nondescript dirt road materialized on their right, indistinguishable from countless others bisecting the harsh landscape. John decelerated smoothly, turning onto the unpaved path without hesitation. Janelle's posture immediately stiffened, primitive survival instincts finally registering danger signals her conscious mind refused to process. "Why are we going here?" she questioned, attempting to mask growing unease beneath casual curiosity. John had anticipated this predictable reaction, his response prepared months in advance for this exact moment. "Well," he explained with practiced sincerity, "there's a great little place along this road where we can stop and have some privacy while we eat." He paused deliberately before adding, "It'll be safer too." The calculated reference to safety, ironically exploiting her very valid concerns, achieved its intended effect. Tension visibly drained from her shoulders as they continued along the dusty path until the main highway disappeared entirely from view. John brought the vehicle to a controlled stop in a shallow depression surrounded by sparse vegetation and weather-worn rock formations, a location carefully selected for its acoustic properties. Sound would not travel beyond this natural amphitheater. She could scream for hours without the slightest chance of intervention. John exited the vehicle with fluid confidence, retrieving the small white cooler and light green blanket from his meticulously organized trunk. Janelle followed hesitantly, her earlier enthusiasm tempered by growing subconscious awareness of her isolation with this increasingly enigmatic stranger. The blanket unfurled across coarse desert sand with practiced precision, creating an almost romantic tableau against the harsh landscape. Janelle settled cautiously upon the fabric, attempting to recapture their earlier flirtatious energy. "Go ahead and surprise me," she encouraged, her smile not quite reaching those captivating blue eyes that now reflected uncertainty rather than desire. John knelt beside the cooler, positioned deliberately to block her view of its contents. "Okay," he replied, pleasant tone betraying nothing of his accelerating heartbeat. "Here's a surprise you weren't expecting." His hand emerged with practiced choreography, sunlight glinting obscenely against 12 inches of surgically sharpened steel. Janelle's transformation from uncertainty to comprehension to absolute terror occurred within milliseconds, her beautiful features contorting as primitive panic overrode all higher functions. John observed this metamorphosis with clinical fascination, memorizing each micro-expression for later savoring during inevitable periods between suitable targets. Her survival instincts finally activated with appropriate urgency. She scrambled backward with surprising agility, attempting to create distance before committing to full flight. John calmly extracted the canister of bear spray concealed within his jacket pocket, a precaution he had never once needed to employ without perfect success. The industrial-strength chemical compound erupted from the nozzle in a concentrated stream, enveloping Janelle's face in caustic fog that immediately rendered her defenseless. She collapsed forward, hands clawing desperately at burning eyes while respiratory passages constricted violently. "Why are you doing this?" she managed between desperate attempts to inhale. "What did I ever do to you?" John circled her writhing form methodically, admiring her tenacity despite hopeless circumstances. "What did you do to me?" he echoed contemplatively. "Be real pretty, that's what really gets me off." The grotesque simplicity of his response penetrated her pain-fogged consciousness, triggering a desperate barrage of pleading. She spoke of family waiting anxiously for her return, a nursing degree nearly completed after years of sacrifice, plans to volunteer with disadvantaged children, constructing elaborate promises and scenarios she believed might humanize her to this monster. John absorbed these desperate entreaties with increasing arousal, each tearful word feeding the inferno building within. "I'll take a taste of that right now," he whispered, kneeling beside her helpless form. The knife descended with surgical precision, penetrating exactly where he had envisioned during their drive. Her scream, primal and transcendent, echoed briefly within the natural enclosure before dissipating into the indifferent desert air, heard by no one who could intervene. This particular performance concluded efficiently. John had refined his methodology through dozens of similar encounters stretching back nearly 15 years. Methodically cleaning blood from his hands and blade with sterile paper towels, he retrieved the specialized shovel kept specifically for these occasions from its concealed compartment within his customized trunk. The grave required only 27 minutes to prepare adequately, practice having rendered him extraordinarily efficient at this particular task. He positioned her remains with uncharacteristic tenderness, arranging limbs in seemingly peaceful repose before covering evidence of his work with practiced precision. Each shovelful of dirt distributed evenly, surface irregularities meticulously eliminated through careful tamping and strategic placement of indigenous vegetation. The exception to his burial procedure, the only consistent signature across his extensive portfolio of victims, involved careful extraction of Janelle's striking blue eyes. Using specialized instruments maintained in laboratory-grade sterility, he delicately removed these windows to her extinguished soul, placing them reverently within a hermetically sealed preservation container designed specifically for ophthalmological specimens. The small acrylic box joined dozens of identical containers within his glove compartment, each labeled with dates and locations written in meticulous script. John pressed the container to his lips with genuine affection before securing it alongside his growing collection. "You'll always be part of me now," he whispered, caressing the transparent surface through which vacant pupils stared eternally at nothing. Twilight gradually encroached upon the murder scene as John completed his methodical cleanup procedures, hunger finally asserting itself after such intense physical and emotional exertion. Retrieving an actual sandwich from the cooler, his props always functional to maintain plausibility, he consumed it methodically while surveying his handiwork with professional satisfaction. Nothing remained to suggest anything untoward had occurred in this unremarkable patch of desert. Nature itself would collaborate in concealing his actions as windblown sand gradually obscured even the subtlest indications of disturbance. Satiated both physically and psychologically, John returned to his vehicle with unhurried confidence, meticulously checking his clothing and skin for any overlooked evidence before continuing his journey westward toward Los Angeles. Merging onto the main highway, he activated his satellite radio, allowing Bach's intricate mathematical perfection to fill the vehicle's interior while his predatory awareness remained alert for potential opportunities. Fate rewarded his patience remarkably quickly. Barely 40 minutes after departing his improvised burial ground, another solitary female figure materialized in the distance, thumb extended hopefully toward approaching traffic. John's heartbeat accelerated involuntarily as details emerged, raven hair cascading across slender shoulders, athletic physique evident even at distance. Methodically decreasing his speed, he positioned his vehicle optimally before pulling onto the shoulder approximately 50 feet ahead of his potential next subject. Watching through his rearview mirror as she approached cautiously, John arranged his features into the benevolent expression that had disarmed countless victims before her. As she reached his window, he lowered it smoothly, offering his practiced opening line, "Do you need a ride?" Her hesitation lasted barely a moment before relief overwhelmed caution. "You know, I think I do," she replied, circling his vehicle to enter the passenger side, never suspecting she was walking voluntarily into her own extinction. Decades passed while authorities struggled fruitlessly to connect the seemingly unrelated disappearances occurring along this particular stretch of interstate. Physical evidence remained frustratingly absent. Victims apparently vanished into thin air without struggle or witnesses. Law enforcement agencies established a multi-jurisdictional task force after statistical analysis revealed disturbing patterns impossible to attribute to coincidence. All victims female, predominantly between 18 and 30, all attractive, all traveling alone. Anonymous tips occasionally generated brief investigative flurries that inevitably collapsed under evidentiary insufficiency. Composite sketches based on survivor testimony depicted an unremarkably handsome Caucasian male with perfect teeth and expensive sunglasses, descriptions so generic they matched thousands of Southern California residents. Only one potential victim had escaped, hurling herself from John's moving vehicle after noticing the peculiar contents of his partially open glove compartment during a moment of careless overconfidence. Her testimony provided the only concrete details of the perpetrator, though severe concussions sustained during her escape rendered portions of her account questionable under rigorous scrutiny. The investigative file expanded exponentially as disappearances continued unabated. Missing persons reports, desperate pleas from grieving families, forensic analyses of desert terrain yielding nothing beyond indigenous animal remains. Law enforcement professionals assigned the unknown subject a dramatic designation intended to capture public attention and potentially generate actionable intelligence, the Desert Scorpion. Media outlets embraced this sinister nomenclature enthusiastically, producing sensationalized documentaries and speculative exposés that paradoxically complicated legitimate investigative efforts by contaminating potential witness recollections with manufactured details. The actual tally of victims remained impossible to ascertain conclusively. Conservative estimates suggested approximately 100 women had fallen prey to this methodical predator, while less restrained analysts proposed figures approaching 250. John, whose actual identity remained unknown to those hunting him, continued his activities with strategic modifications to counteract evolving investigative techniques. He altered his vehicle regularly, refined his victim selection parameters, and expanded his geographical hunting grounds while maintaining meticulous records of each encounter within journals secured in a climate-controlled storage facility registered under one of his numerous false identities. His collection of preserved ocular specimens expanded correspondingly, organized chronologically within specialized refrigeration units concealed behind innocent-appearing workshop cabinetry within his expansive basement. Investigators who might have recognized the significance of these trophies never obtained sufficient probable cause to search his immaculately maintained property, while those granted social access perceived only a cultured, generous community member with impeccable taste. Thus Jonathan Mercer, architect, philanthropist, monster, continued his reign of terror without interruption, his true nature concealed behind carefully constructed veneers of normalcy that deflected even the most persistent scrutiny. The most terrifying aspect of this account lies not in the grotesque details of John's methodology, nor in the staggering victim count accumulated across decades of predation, but rather in the uncomfortable truth it forces us to confront about our neighbors, colleagues, friends, and acquaintances. We imagine monsters as visibly malformed creatures, physically manifesting their interior corruption through twisted features or unsettling mannerisms that alert potential victims to imminent danger. Reality proves infinitely more insidious. Evil frequently wears attractive, charismatic faces that disarm rather than alarm. John remains uncaptured not through supernatural abilities or exceptional intelligence, but through society's fundamental unwillingness to recognize that predators exist beyond fictional narratives. They coach little league teams, organize charity fundraisers, and volunteer at community events while meticulously compartmentalizing their sadistic compulsions. His seemingly endless collection of preserved eyes represents something beyond mere trophies. Each pair serves as physical manifestation of society's collective blindness to threats hiding in plain sight. The desert scorpion continues hunting even now, selecting victims with predatory patience while law enforcement resources gradually redirect toward more soluble cases. New generations familiar only with sanitized versions of his methodology through true crime podcasts and streaming documentaries remain vulnerable to his practiced approach, his weathered features and graying temples lending additional credibility to his carefully maintained facade of trustworthiness. Perhaps most disturbing remains the statistical certainty that John represents merely one example among countless others operating with similar impunity across highways, college campuses, and suburban neighborhoods nationwide. For every notorious killer whose capture provides illusory comfort regarding systemic safety, dozens more continue their activities undetected, accumulating victims while perfecting techniques ensuring continued anonymity. They exist among us, coaching your children, handling your financial transactions, treating your medical conditions, preparing your food, monsters wearing human masks, watching through seemingly normal eyes that conceal bottomless wells of depravity. Tonight, as darkness descends and you secure your home against external threats, consider this uncomfortable reality: the most dangerous predators rarely break in. They're invited through front doors, welcomed into lives based on superficial assessments of character that reveal nothing of the meticulously concealed darkness lurking beneath carefully maintained veneers of normalcy. They are your neighbors, your friends, your family members. They are everywhere, and they are watching.